Hey guys, Red, White, and Ruthless number 18. Yeah, we're doing number 18, man. Today we're going to talk a little bit about CDCR. Um, I'm a little miffed, I'd say, CDCR. I'm trying to provide some information. I'm trying to do a podcast. I need some information and shit. And they make it really difficult. Um, you reach out as media to communications. Um, and by the way, 28 years in CDCR, I was a PI. I was a public information officer. Okay. So I know exactly how this shit works. All right. Um, your media reaches out to the public information officer or communications in headquarters if it's a CDCR wide thing. And they give them questions. They tell them what they're after. And you should respond, respectfully. You should respond timely. You should respond like, I mean, everybody should be like the Wall Street Journal, and there's no reason not to. I dealt with some very, kind of minor, uh, news reporters and shit like that. And everybody got the same amount of respect, I mean, they got a job to do. And this is my job. I mean, I don't make any money for it, let's be honest, but I enjoy doing it. And I'm trying to make it, I'm trying to make it, you know, uh, I guess a bigger podcast where I have more listeners and more people interested and get the information out. But I need some cooperation, and I think it's just disrespectful when they act like you're nobody. So that's how I felt a little bit. Maybe I am nobody. Who the fuck cares? Um, but I just felt like they should have treated, or Terry Hardy should have treated me a little bit better. But here's a scenario. I reach out and I give them a number of questions, and I want some documents. And this is all based. I guess I should start with this. It's all based on the current California model. Okay, well, I don't know if we all know or not, but California model is a dead issue. California model is based on the Norway prison system, where, and this is CDCR words. This is, well, it's the Norway, you know, way of doing things. They want to create like a college campus environment. Right. Now, I'm not saying that that was CDCR's goal, or what have you. I really don't think they're that stupid. Some people are definitely that stupid in CDCR. Don't get me wrong. Um, but I think that the custody, especially the custody folks, are not that stupid. Um, so, anyways, I'm trying to get some information about it, and the joints are locked down. I believe it's level threes and fours were all locked down because, let's face it, people are getting murdered. Okay, there are weapons being found. There's dope being found at really high numbers, and officers, staff being stabbed at high numbers. There was recently a murder of a parole agent. I mean, this is news. This is shit that we need to be talking about. And why is it happening? There's a reason for it. Okay. So I'm asking questions, and I gave her just some basic uh I want some basic information. I don't want somebody to have to work a half a day just to get back to my ass, but I do expect um somebody to respond professionally. So the first question is, why did you guys decide to go on lockdown? On lockdown on all these joints. I mean, what happened that led up to it? How many staff were injured? Were there weapons involved? How are they doing now? Just kind of basic shit. Um, it, and the response was, we're not commenting on any ongoing investigations. Well, the shit is already out in a lot of it's in the news already. Okay, it's just in bits and pieces. And my question is, when did it kind of, what uh, what happened that made you decide to lock all these joints down? And you know, somebody presented something that said, hey, since, July of last year up until, well, it started in, I think it was in June, maybe May. I don't know when it started. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Since May of last year up till this May, we've had X number of, staff attacked, and we found X number of weapons. We've done, blah, 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 blah. Something happened. And the simple answer was, hey, we took a review, or looked at it over the last X number of, months or whatever they did. And, blah, blah, blah. We determined that we wanted to, take a look at shit, and that required lockdown and searches. And we want to kind of, reset this thing. Or whatever they did, but instead I get this very callous, just no comment, under investigation, which no shit. I'm not asking for confidential shit, just numbers of staff injured and so on. Anyway, that kind of irked me a little bit because the information can be out there. It's not confidential. She's full of shit. She just doesn't want to. She doesn't want to do the work. She's lazy. So then, and this is just a series of questions, same day, and it culminated in. Oh, yeah, sorry, guys. Yeah, I can't do this thing without smoke. Sorry. Oh, that's good. All right. So then I talk about California model. What's going on with that? Is that responsible for, or at least partially responsible, do y'all think, for the violence and blah blah blah? It's never really commented a lot about that. Referred me back to some very basic shit on the CDCR website. Come to find out, they were planning on, not funding the California model. So she kind of lied about that a little bit. Then probably the most important question I had was, hey, you've got staff who are out there, and these staff are, they're, and I didn't have to break it down this far, but basically my concern is you've got staff who are not custody staff, who are not used to seeing all this violence, and some custody staff too. Well, the joint I worked at, we had people quitting the first day. It was just, that was my very first, prison, and it was violent as hell. And people are worried, man. They don't want to lose their life, coming to prison world every day. So in non-custody people are, out there walking these yards too. And, what are you doing for them? They've got to be stressed out right now. You're locked down because motherfuckers are being murdered. Okay. Inmates and staff now. And the staff hadn't, in all fairness, the staff hadn't been murdered at that point. But again, my concern was people are concerned. What are you doing to protect them? Was one of my questions. To protect, never got answered. What are you doing for them? Meaning, from the mental perspective, these folks who are potentially stressed out and worried about, their safety. Because like I say, there's office technician in this, and I mean no disrespect by this, but secretarial type positions like office technicians and office assistants and so on. They're called office technicians, or excuse me, the secretarial positions, office technician, office assistant, and people that work in the canteen, the store, and just people that deliver materials and stuff like that. These people don't want to fight an inmate. All right. That's not what they signed up for. They don't want an inmate attacking them. Okay. And so they're worried about it. So what are you doing for them? No fucking answer at all. No answer. Okay. Now she's the one, Terry Hardy is the one that asked me, what is your time frame? All right. Meaning when is my podcast, set to go? When do I want to launch? And I told her a week. Um, you know, and I would have been fine if she came back, hey, I can't do this for 2 weeks. But she didn't say shit. She just didn't respond. She responded to the easy shit that referred me to the website, you know, and that was it. And it kind of pissed me off a little bit, because it's clearly she does her job in a very lazy way. I wasn't important enough for her to put any thought into my questions. And I think there should be some accountability for that. You know, you should treat all media, the same, no matter if I'm the Wall Street Journal or I'm just the Red, White, and Ruthless podcast. Okay. Um, and that kind of hurt me a little bit. But yeah, so the California Mile, and I've got a little show for you all. I add this, and we're going to play it for you, and just a little bit about it. Oops, my bad, messed it up. Oh, there it is, right there. This was all queued up and shit.
And rehabilitation's
There
newest
we
initiative,
go.
the California Model, where correctional officers and inmates become the best of friends. Watch as they engage in fun activities together inside the prison walls. They play games. They hug. They high-five. They horseplay. But wait, there's more. Now, correctional officers can take inmates home for sleepovers. And if an inmate wants to sleep with the officer's wife, well, why not? Everyone's laughing. Isn't this great? Subscribe now for more wacky stories from the world.
All right. Now that was obviously a kind of a funny take on the California model. And prison guards don't reach out and threaten to kill me and all that shit. Trust me, I know that y'all aren't taking the women or taking convicts home and shit. It was just a joke. All right, but I think the point of that was, I didn't make the video, but the point of that is that's what people think about this California model is just that. It's goofy. It's won't work. It's not working, and it won't work in California. California has some of the absolute most violent criminals anywhere, period. Okay. Definitely I would say in the country without question. It's not a place that you want to make like a college campus. Okay. People will get killed. People are getting killed in record numbers. Inmates are getting murdered. So, yeah, it, it's sad that we can't get some real answers, and accountability. So, kind of a little back to my issue with CDCR is I ended up sending an email to Jeff McCumber, and he's the secretary of CDCR, thinking he probably won't respond to me, but I'm going to send him an email. I'm not gonna post his response. He did respond, man. Big respect for the dude. He did respond. He made sure that communications was responding to me, and he did exactly what I would expect him to. Well, actually, I didn't really expect him to do it, but he did exactly what he should have done, and for that I thank him. I hear a lot of podcasts and a lot of people really pretty hard on McCumber, and I don't know him personally, but I do know people that do know him, and he's supposed to be a good dude, and I don't know enough about him to say he's not. I do know that the CDC the California model is not his baby. That's Gavin Newsom's bullshit. And Montgomery's the secretary. So if Gavin says, "Hey, we want this," then it's Jeff's job to implement it. That's just what the job is. And if you've ever, you don't have the luxury of saying, "No, I don't think that's going to work, boss." Okay, you just don't. All right, so you do your absolute best to make it work. Okay, because that's what administrators and managers and supervisors are supposed to do. Even all the way down to an officer level, if we give you an assignment, even though it's not going to work, it's your job to try and make it work. And then when it doesn't, okay, you were right. And how many times have we gone through that before, guys? I mean, we have. Okay, but you've got a person like Gavin Newsom who's very woke, who's very pro-criminal, who's very anti-law enforcement, and he wants to develop a hug-a-thug program. And unfortunately, he's the governor, and McCumber is the secretary, and so he's got to implement. What's he supposed to do? This is his fucking job, So yeah, I mean, so he gets to he gets to try it out, and hopefully he's not the one that ends up getting fired for it not working. I mean, maybe he's got that coming, because I mean, it kind of is, it failed, and quite often that's the end of your career right there, is when shit like that fails. But I think the idea was dead in the water, and Montgomery couldn't have ever made it work, or anybody in CDCR can never make that shit work. But back to Montgomery's response. He did respond to me, and then Terry Hardy responded and said, "Oh, I gave you your answers on the 16th of June," which is bullshit. She kind of answered some stuff, but she didn't really put any. It was very, very lazy answers. With regard, my most important question about it, are they taking care of staff and stuff like that? Her response was essentially, we have peer support. So we always have peer support. Okay, we always have it. My question is, are you doing anything above and beyond, number one, to keep them safe, and then to deal with these? Are you doing anything more than that? Peer support is one of those things where I don't even know that she's ever even brought out the policy and read it, because peer support is not. If she would have read the policy, she wouldn't have answered peer support. Okay, peer support is, and this is based off, my own. I used to run the peer support program, so I know a little bit about it. And at least in my day, it was something that was activated, essentially a team that was activated based on a local thing that happened at your prison. So let's say somebody was killed on the way to work in a car accident. You activate peer support, so people come in, give you provide you resources and support, and they work with you if you're having those kind of issues. So so that's not really the scenario that where you would. I mean, you wouldn't just activate peer support. If something did happen at your prison, then of course you could activate peer support. But if it didn't happen, and you're just one of the ones locked down, and you're one of the ones that's really stressed out because you're locked down, these people are being killed at other prisons, meaning inmates. Well, there's a parole agent that was unfortunately killed. But these things are happening. Peer support's not going to help you. All right. That's not the way the policy works. So she doesn't know what she's talking about. And that's probably the worst thing a person could do when they're when they're in a position of providing information, is to give bad information. And that's what she did. Because the answer is really nothing. Okay. They're doing nothing extra. That's the answer. Okay. It's the answer. I mean, I don't give a shit. I do give a shit, but I mean, that's the answer though. Instead, she tries to, she half-ass knows a little bit about prison. Unfortunately for her, I know a lot about prison, and I know that her answer was bullshit. Um, but it would be a good answer if something happened at a particular prison and those people needed assistance. Okay. But anyways, we'll move on. So a little update on like where the department is going now that number one, they're off these lockdowns. Okay, so all the joints are back on normal program. Um, I did see just recently there was another inmate murdered. I believe it was this week. So the violence hasn't stopped. Um, I know that of course, we have the parole agent. I don't know if they're locking anything down over the parole agent. Matter of fact, that's a question I'm going to ask her. I don't know the situation on that whole deal. My understanding is the dude came into the parole agent office, but I don't know that to be fact. It's just the way it was presented. So, I mean, I hope they figure all that shit out and, you know, keep him, figure out a way to keep him safe. That, if that dude did come into the parole agent office, and man, you got to do something there to prevent that. Um, but, uh, but yeah, everything's back to normal program. Um, what's going to happen from here? We've got no more California model. It has been, I don't know what the right word, unfunded, defunded. The defund the police. Well, let's defund California model. Well, they did. All right. So, what I don't know, and this is one of my questions that wasn't answered, is they plan any changes with California model? Now they've defunded it, which would indicate that it's gone. Okay. And that's what I suspect will happen. It's just gone. But sometimes they'll just kind of remake it, remold it, and create it. But I don't think they would tell me that anyways. Their answer is going to be, well, as at this point, it's not funded and blah blah blah. The real question is, do they plan on rebuilding that piece of shit and selling it again to CDCR or to the staff, anyways? So I don't know. I don't know if they will or not. So let's talk about future podcasts. I'm going to roll this one down a little bit. I've vented a little bit. I did have, I had a couple of, I'm not going to play. I had a couple of just videos I'm not going to play, but it just talked about the violence in the California prisons right now and shit like that. I'm not going to play. There's just a bunch of shit happening. I hope everybody's safe. But future podcast, I'm going to talk about prison gangs, and this is kind of an informational for folks who haven't worked in Department of Corrections, or even if you have and you don't know the history of prison gangs. We're going to talk about that. I enjoy talking about it. I find it really interesting. Some of my friends have, worked in the gang units and shit like that. I used to go to the gang conferences and shit, and these dudes who were so into it, man, they're really interesting to listen to. But yeah, there's prison gangs, and when I say there's gangs, they're prison gangs, they started in California prisons, and we'll talk about the history of some of them, who started them, and some of them just when they started, and in most of them why they started. And there's only there's not that many, but they wreak some havoc on the California prison system, that's for sure. Now things have changed since then. We used to just basically deal with the prison gangs, but now they call it disruptive something. I don't know what the hell it is, but it switched over from dealing with just prison gangs. If you're a member of a prison gang, you got locked up in a shoe. Now they expanded it to basically any disruptive group, like Bloods and Crips and stuff. Lock them up, but you at least recognize their membership in that particular gang and stuff, and know that, because even back when I started in early '90s, Bloods and Crips were, they were going at it. Crips and Crips were always going at it. They went at it more than Bloods and Crips. But then when it was a black thing, the blacks all kind of stood together. So it was kind of a variation of all the shit. Because blacks would have an issue with the whites, and the whites didn't care if you're blood or Crip. They didn't give a shit either way. They were just gonna get their issue, and so the blacks stood together. But anyways, we'll talk about some of that shit, and hopefully if that's interesting to you, then you may want to tune in. Maybe Terry Hardy will tune in and learn something, because I don't think she knows shit about prisons right now. I think she knows what she reads, but I wonder if she's ever taken a tour of a prison. I'd love to take her on a tour of a prison, take her to like a mainline level 4, and then walk off and leave her somewhere and just have her walk across the yard by herself. That would be really interesting to me. That's something that cops do, that staff do every day. But let me tell you what, she wouldn't feel comfortable, but she's real comfortable not answering questions about how the department is going to take care of the people who work in those prisons and the people who walk the toughest beat in the state. Yeah, she's real. Don't worry about that. How are you going to take care of them? But anyways, I'm still fucking pissed about that. All right. Anyhow, Jeff McCumber, you did what you're supposed to do, man. Respect to you. You may do a million other things, terribly, but you handle your business this time, and I respect it and I appreciate it. Terry Hardy, not so much. All right, so we are going to play my theme song out of here, and Terry, you should play it in your office. It's really good. Here it is. But she's liberal. All right, guys, we out.